Good evening and welcome to Mindful Life 289. I am your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is the 10th of the 10th, 10-10-2023. 10-10-2023. The 10th of... It's October, right? October 2023. Yeah. This month feels like it's moving. This month is on that piece. It's flying a bit. It's flying a bit out there, and we're already on the 10th day, so whew, I hope you're getting all the bills paid in time. But talking about bills, we're talking budget, because we're still in budget season. The parliamentarians, the politicians are still giving their budget presentation, saying what they believe and what they think is going to come out of the budget. And the Minister of National Security recently gave some of his piece, and I found it interesting. Because he seemed to really care about people's security. It seemed like the Minister of National Security considered it his job to make people feel secure, which I found very interesting, because I don't know how many of you are familiar, but that same minister once said it's not his job to make people feel secure. So this change feels a bit interesting to me. Good night, shy guy. I don't understand why he's still there. Well, because apparently the Prime Minister likes him in that position. And it seems like Mr. Hines is well linked into the PNM, so he has power there. Ooh, wow, he seems to have some power over in the PNM, so I'm not surprised he's still there. It's to get the Prime Minister to move, and the Prime Minister seems like he has no intention of doing such. And to some extent, on one side, to move Mr. Hines now would seem like a failure on Dr. Rowley's part, especially with the fact of so many people that have been calling for his removal and his changing for such a long period of time. To change him now would make it seem like, okay, you were failing to change him before. You agree that he should have been changed, and you're only now doing it. So maybe they stand with the reality as it is. More drones and CCTV cameras, they said, as solutions. I don't know how much more drones and CCTV cameras are necessarily going to be a solution when we see that those boys in Port of Spain are kicking up tanties on the ground and grabbing their purses while they are on camera. They don't seem to mind very much. The camera doesn't seem to do much to them. Do a cabinet reshuffle. He doesn't want to. And he has insulted cabinet reshuffles in the past. He has insulted them. He has spoken negatively about such things. I don't think a cabinet reshuffle is going to show positively on his record, the Prime Minister's record. That's that. Not saying that he shouldn't move him, but I'm just saying the reality of the politics as it stands. Alright, let's jump in on that article over there. Hines hurt. An article from the Daily Express. Hines is hurt. We will fight like hell to protect the people from criminals. So said National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines in his contribution in the budget debates yesterday. He's saying that it pained him, as it did the rest of the nation, to see the video of the woman being dragged by criminals on Charlotte Street, Port of Spain. Hines said he wanted as minister to apologize to all the victims of crime. The Minister of National Security is apologizing to all the victims of crime. I want to apologize to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, those who have lost their ones, those persons who are traumatized by some of our citizens, and perhaps others in home invasions, in rapes and incest. That woman who was dragged on Charlotte Street a few days ago pained all of our hearts, Madam Speaker. On behalf of those of us who behave in those ways, who choose crime in some cases as a business model, I apologize to the rest of us and give you, the nation, the assurance assurance that as Minister of National Security, we will continue to put up the walls, put up the fences, and fight like hell to protect you from that, Hines said. Now, this I find interesting when you put that along with him saying, no, my duty is not to ensure that people feel safe and secure. This is from February of last year. Mr. Hines was quoted as saying that it's not his job to make people feel secure. So this is a bit of a change of mood from Mr. Hines. He is now apologizing to us and attempting to, soothe people and make them feel more secure. Something he previously said wasn't his job. Yo, host, what's going on? Something he previously said wasn't his job. He's now apparently leaning into that aspect of his new job. But he didn't stop right there. He went on further, because he went on again to tackle the issue of legal guns. As I regularly tell y'all, the PNM status quo elitist, regular run-of-the-mill, keep it as it is party does not want the average citizen to have the ability to defend themselves. That is the PNM's belief. You don't believe it? Listen. Pointing out that some have said the solution to the problem was to bring in more guns and ammunition, following the philosophy wrongly adopted by that last commissioner, Hines said this government had a restrictive policy where firearms will be granted to people who can demonstrate that they need them, and not simply because you are somebody's friend. Now, can someone explain to me, how does someone demonstrate that they need a firearm? How is that demonstrated? Is it that someone has to put out an actual threat on your life, and that's how it's demonstrated? Or could it possibly be that the 40 murders per 100,000, which is closing in around to the highest murder rate in the world, could it be that record high murder rate is enough that everyone has a good reason to want a firearm? A little few $100 slipped into the envelope together with your application. Oh, that's how you show that you need it. I see. According to Hines, the TTPS was engaged in a serious gun retrieval exercise, and he called on the public to assist in this exercise, which had seen 96 revolvers, 298 pistols, 35 shotguns, 11 submachine guns, and 62 rifles recovered for this year. And as I've said over and over and over, I think if they left all of those guns on the streets, I don't think there would have been any more murders. To be very honest with you, I do not think the average criminals in Trinidad and Tobago are struggling to get guns and ammunition. If guns and ammunition are flowing into the country unabated at an incredibly high rate, and we are paying a large number of police to find a few of these guns continually, that's nearly like money laundering to me. That's nearly like the government just making work for some police officers, because them finding 5 rusty guns out in a garbage bag in a deserted lot every month does nothing to the repository of guns and ammunition that the average gang has in Trinidad and Tobago. If you want to convince me that the government, the state apparatus, the security apparatus is doing something about the guns in Trinidad and Tobago, don't tell me the police are going around grabbing guns off the street. Tell me that you are stopping the guns at the border. Until I see guns being stopped on a nearly daily or weekly basis at our borders and ports, then to show me one rusty gun every week is pointless. That is nothing. That does nothing to anything. It's like nearly like the war on drugs. The war on drugs to a large extent is pointless. The police seize cocaine every day, if they do, and still there's no piper out there that cannot find cocaine when he wants it. So what is the point of them seizing the cocaine? Best they just leave it right where it is. Are we so sure they're not recycling those guns that they found? Well, Adriel Robinson, there have been recent accusations of exactly that. The police recently shot one of the sons of deceased alleged gang leader in Enterprise, Robocop. They recently shot one of his sons. And in the shooting of one of his sons, they found a gun with an extended magazine in the car. The gun allegedly was found the day before Emancipation Day or something like that. The same gun was seized. So it's the second time the same gun has been seized. Apparently. You know, as we regularly talk about the racketeering inside of our police service, how are we supposed to be out here? And Hines went on to say that. Hines said, support police instead of stand your ground policy. He said the National Security Minister called on the public to show support to the police by providing information and intelligence instead of taking matters into their own hands. He made this call during his budget presentation. Some say the solution to our problems is more guns. He says no, this government is focused on restricting that and supporting the police. And here's the thing. If the police showed themselves to be worthy and capable of that level of support, I'm sure they would have gotten it. But when you see in Trinidad, you have these kinds of situations regularly where they shoot this man. Now, I don't know, the allegations are strong about what life he may be living. That's not relevant to the matter at hand necessarily. But they shoot this man. They shoot him inside a car that has pitch black tint. And conveniently, they said they were in a chase before chasing him, and conveniently, they found him with a gun literally at the foot of the driver's seat. So he had some time in that pitch black car. You all saw him point the gun, shot him. Another one I saw recently, I saw that the was it Inshan Ishmael was speaking about when he repaired police vehicles, and they would repair them with original parts, and when the police vehicle has left the garage with the original parts, 2 weeks later the vehicle returns and the original part is missing. Some officers out there never buy a part for their vehicle. That's part of our police service. And we are supposed to see that in a country that has nearing the top murder rate in the world, an extremely dangerous country on all metrics, we are supposed to say, however, no. Let's not protect ourselves. Let's leave it up to that police service to protect us. That just doesn't seem reasonable to me. It doesn't seem reasonable. It doesn't seem like they are capable of doing the job. If they are capable of doing the job, why haven't they done it yet? Hey, Richie Rich, what's going on? And that's the point I'm making. If the police service is capable of knocking the murder rate down to a safe feeling level, they're capable of keeping people safe. If it is possible, why haven't they done it yet? And here's the thing. people could have a justifiable case to not be on the police's back to necessarily keep them personally secure if you allow people to keep themselves personally secure. It doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't. And, you know, I agree that Mr. Hines probably is the most ideal person to apologize to this country. Mr. Hines is a former police officer. Mr. Hines is an attorney. Mr. Hines is a government minister. Mr. Hines is the Minister for National Security. Mr. Hines is also the Member of Parliament for Laventille. Now, you could say that, you know, you don't want to paint people with broad brushes and you don't want to cast aspersions against geographic locations and etc., etc., etc. But there's a certain reality that we must face in the country, and I think if we are to deal with crime seriously, we have to deal with these realities as they exist. We have to deal with the reality as they exist. There are certain geographic locations in Trinidad that seem to manufacture more of the violent criminals. Fact. A home invasion happens in Pinal, in Rio Claro, in Mayaro, and you could feel relatively certain you're going to find some of that stolen goods on the escape route to East Port of Spain. Very regularly it happens like that. Fact. And Mr. Hines is responsible as the Member of Parliament for that constituency. And he is the Minister of National Security. You're trying to tell me, with a coalescing of those two portfolios, with an understanding of police work which you belong to before, with an understanding of the law as you are an attorney, all of that, and it's impossible for you to get a handle on anything criminal in that hotspot region. Really? He's right to apologize. I think he is. Blessed evening, Charmin. Blessed evening. Jumping over to insurance, NIB in trouble. NIB in Bacchanal, they're looking to raise the age of the pensioners. I don't know if you've heard that. Pensioners, if you're closing in on that 60-year mark, tough luck. Following Monday's budget, we were informed that the Minister of Finance is close to completing consultations on increasing the national retirement age from 60 to 65 years. This comes as no surprise, since the demographic pressure of an aging population would put an immense strain on the sustainability of the national insurance scheme, not to mention the millions in debt owed by state enterprises. Such consultations are needed, as it has been mentioned time and time again, that the scheme's current contribution benefit is not sufficient to support its long-term expenditure, namely pension obligations. In the meanwhile, however, private insurance companies continue to honor their annuity obligations on the backdrop of falling revenues and a pandemic. Oh, hey Auntie Maggie. What's up? In Trinidad and Tobago, the National Insurance Board is responsible for the administration and operation of the country's NIS, which is modeled similarly to a private annuity. Since 2020, the combined contribution and investment income of our national insurance scheme has not been able to cover total expenditure. This has forced the NIB to draw down on cash assets of the National Insurance Fund for now to finance the deficit. With contributions and investments totaling less than its payouts, the NS has now found itself along a grave and dangerous path. What does this mean? To sum it up, this simply means that there is now no guarantee that upon retirement one will receive their pension. That's the tough part. No. NIS wasn't 65. You were talking about the national pension grant. Is they're calling it grant right now, I believe still. The pension grant, it's at 65. The NIS, the National Insurance Scheme pension, you were supposed to be able to access that at 60. In one of the last releases by NIB, it was stated that the ratio of contributors to pensioners is foreseen to decrease from 3.7 to 1.1 over the next 3.3 to 7 to 1.1 over the next 50 years. As job losses continue to rise, this ratio now seems more and more realistic. Realistic meaning that for every contributor, there will now be one pensioner, echoing the fact that reform needs to happen now. You see, the idea is, as I regularly say, as I regularly point out, pension isn't paid by you investing in and them eventually giving it back to you. No. The pension you get when you are old is actually paid by the people who are currently contributing to the pension fund. So if you have an aging population where you are not making enough babies, there aren't enough babies out there to continue coming up and working as young people, then you don't have enough young working people to maintain the old non-working people. That's why the idea of overpopulation is such a foolish concept that many people, it's idiotic to put into the real world. When you put it into the real world, we are facing problems with an aging population where we very soon may not have enough young people working to keep the old people that cannot work alive. And we're talking about what we need to do is have less babies. Okay, well, we're going to have to figure out a way for those old people to work and keep themselves alive. Or everyone would not be able to access the pension fairly. Older people are living longer too. Yes, they indeed are. Older people are living longer. There are less young people being born, so there are less people to maintain these older people that are now living longer. I hope they open up about 50 more Starbucks locations to hire university graduates until 30. Lol. Funny stuff. With an average life expectancy per person of about 74 years, Trinidad and Tobago now faces a reality that has been facing developed countries throughout the world. This simply means that the NIB will not only have to make payments to more pensioners, but also honor these payments for a longer period of time. Time and time again, we have heard of the NIB's recommendations to not only increase the retirement age from 60 to 65, but also increase the contribution rate. Although increasing the contribution rate will bring some short-term relief to the system, it will further squeeze the disposable income of our working population. There are, however, alternative measures that can be explored. So increasing the contribution rate, what we are doing there is we are now stripping more resources from the working population to keep the elderly population alive. Now, it may be a necessary thing. You don't want the old people to just die of destitution. That's a horrible thing to do. But resources to the working population and just flitted away. These resources are used to elevate their position in life, to fund their family, to fund their adventures, all kinds of different things. If you remove that money from the working population and send it into the elderly population, you're putting more of a strain again on that working population. And you could wonder in terms of a countrywide basis, if someone is 75 and they went through their life and had no babies, no children, nothing, not even a parrot and a stick, should they be as fairly able to access the resources of young people who were born to parents who went through the sacrifice of making and raising these children? should my children have to increase their payments to pay for people who didn't want to have children? These are questions that we are going to have to answer as society moves on, because we are going to end up with more people in such positions. What about workers in the public sector being medically boarded between 60 to 65? I'm not sure exactly what you mean in that case. Maybe a 5-child policy. There needs to be incentives for persons to get married and have children. Ha, ha, ha. Lol. All right. Here are some alternatives that were proposed in this article. Vary pension payments. As it is, the sums contributed to the NIS vary as it depends on one's salary, but the pensions received remains more or less the same. Although the NIB is founded on the principle of redistribution, as I regularly tell people, we have a lot of communism sitting and hiding all about in our country. That pension fund, as the person points out, is founded on the idea of redistribution. The idea is to redistribute wealth. If you make more money, you have a higher amount to pay in contributions towards NIS. When your pension comes, it's just about the same regardless of what level of contributions you made. What the author is suggesting here is to vary that. It would be wise to categorically distribute the NIS pensions as per monetary contributions. This would not only model a private deferred annuity policy, but also reflect a more realistic and sustainable insurance system. That's kind of unfair. Why? What's kind of unfair right now, or is it unfair to change it to pay as you pay? Like, if you make less contributions, you get less. If you make more contributions, you get more. Makes sense. Include self-employed persons to the NIS. Our society comprises a large number of self-employed persons, such as taxi drivers, farmers, etc., etc. They're saying to include these people to the NIS. And as far as I know, the thing is, these people can pay their NIS. The person also spoke about housewives. I believe just about anyone can go in and privately pay their NIS. The problem is many people don't, because they don't see the value in it. That's just the reality. And many businesses shirk their responsibilities of paying it also. Many businesses choose not to go out there and pay it. Imbert said a third of Trinidad and Tobago's workers don't make NIS contributions. I don't know that to be true, Ronnie. I know quite a few people who go into the NIS office and pay. They pay NIS. You can pay workers for yourself. So, and the process may be a bit difficult for some, but no, not for privately owned businesses, but if you have an NIS number, can't you go into the NIS office and make your contributions? I know lots of people that are self-employed or employed with employers who don't care to pay NIS that go and pay their contributions all on their own. I know that to be a fact. I know that to be a fact. So, I mean, that was stopped. When was that stopped? And why would they stop that? Why would they stop anything that increases the NIS payments when NIS is struggling for payments? No. Well, I'll ask someone in the morning, but I'm telling you, I know someone who went today to pay NIS payments. So Where are the 200,000 people who work but are not listed on the national insurance scheme? This question was raised by Finance Minister Colm Imbert, who along with the business community defended the government's decision to increase the retirement age from 60 to 65. Imbert revealed that almost a third of the labor force in TT is not registered with the NIS. There's an interesting statistic that I discovered some years ago, Imbert said. Our labor force is around 600,000, but the number of people on the national insurance scheme is 400,000. So where are the 200,000 people? You have a number of businesses who are not making their NIS contributions on behalf of their employees, said TTMA President Ronald Roach. They go below the radar, and if the net is widened and we get contributions from more businesses, then that could help. Imbert described the move to raise the retirement age from 60 to 65 as necessary and beneficial. Now, the thing is, if the NIS contributions system was working in such a way as the previous author was talking about, where the value of your contributions basically paid for your pension, then it kind of wouldn't matter who hides from paying NIS. Because if you don't pay the NIS, then you don't get the NIS benefits. That's all to it. And then the NIB would have no care, no worry about who pays or doesn't pay the NIS contributions. If that were the case. But if the case is that the NIS is working on a redistribution kind of idea, where they attempt to take resources from some of those who make more and redistribute it to some of those who make less, then if I am one of those who you wanted to redistribute resources from, and I decide I'm not going to pay into the NIS because you're just going to redistribute my resources, then you'd lose. Do you support Palestine in their fight against their oppressors? No, I do not. Simple as. Oh, Talon, I have a rant about NIS. I'm sure you won't be the only one. I'm doing well, Talon. I'm doing well. Can't complain. Fight against their oppressors. The history of that whole Palestinian conflict is such a complicated mess that, you know, I like reading. I will never say I am an expert on the issue. I will never say I've read everything there is to read on it. But I've read a good bit. And then when I see some people and their comments, I'm like, just go learn a little about such a conflict before you jump in. Learn a little about it before you jump in. So, you know, just to browse that as we leave the NIS issue. Like, let's get the history of this. I saw someone post, some people were posting, "Good night, Pandit Vijay Raj." I saw some people post the 1947 UN map, which shows Palestine, and they show a large sliver as Palestine. The entire district is Palestine, and there's nothing such as Israel. Palestine existed there first, and not understanding Palestine, the word, is the name of a Roman province. When Rome ruled the area, the entire area, I'm talking about it here, the entire area was ruled by the Romans. It was under Roman rule. Rome ruled it, owned it. After the Romans, It passed through many hands, I believe the Byzantines, then several different Muslim empires, and ultimately to the Ottomans in, was it the early 1600s or something like that? And the Ottomans held on to it for a long time. And then the British got it in 1980s. And the British, in exchange for some dealings they did, promised some Jews that they would allow them to recreate the land of Israel, the country of Israel, in the land that Britain ruled. Britain ruled. The land that Britain ruled, they gave Israel that and promised Israel that they would be able to go build their country there. Bear in mind, there were always Jews in the area. There were Jews that never left the area. Bear that in mind. Also bear in mind, Palestinians, the ethnicity, race of Palestinians is Arab. Now, there are some things you could tell from someone's ethnicity / race. Arabs originate in Arabia. So, the Arabs of Palestine are not indigenous to the region. They moved into the region too. But when Britain gave some Jews the ability to start Israel, they separated the land between Israel and Palestine. The British did that along with the UN. It was the British own during that time post-war where, they were giving up some of their territories. They allowed Israel some. They separated the land between Palestine and Israel. Now, if you look at the history of the British Empire and when they left many areas, how they separated the lands, the British did this all over. They did it in India, they did it in the New World, they did it in the Middle East. The way they left it, oftentimes they did it in Africa too. The way they left the land oftentimes led for some conflict. So they separated the land in a ridiculous way, leaving Israel with two disjointed pieces of land, and so Palestine on the other two kind of disjointed pieces of land. Now, within a couple days of Israel forming as a new country, the Arab countries surrounding them decided that no, we do not want to have an Israeli country here. We refuse to recognize them. And they attacked Israel. Now, they attacked Israel and lost. And this happened over and over. And every time the neighbors attacked Israel, Israel got more land. So now, there was once a country called Transjordan, and Egypt once held all the territory that is currently Gaza was once controlled by Egypt. Not by Palestine, by Egypt. The territory that was in the west, that is known as the West Bank, the next area of Palestine. I know many of you, this is going all over your head because you don't even have a picture of the geography in your mind. But the area that was the West Bank was controlled by a country called Transjordan. Now, those two countries attempted to attack Israel on Yom Kippur, their holiest day, and eventually in a couple days they lost that war. After losing the war, the nature of war, to the victor goes the spoils. So the Sinai Peninsula along with Gaza and that region near to the Jordan became Israel's own because they won it in a war that Transjordania and Egypt fought against them. That's how they got control of all that land. So now Israel, through conquest, defensive conquest, wars of defense, ended up expanding their borders. Now, there were still people living in that Palestine region who considered themselves of a different identity. Palestine only got governance Palestine only got governance in 1993. That's the first time there was ever a Palestinian government. So there was never a political entity called Palestine in that region. That was only created in 1993. Now, Israel offered Jordan to take back that land. They offered Egypt to take back that land. Now, Egypt and Jordan refused to take that land back because the people living in that land. You see, some people don't understand, some of us in the Western world don't understand the 1,000-year history of people in those areas. People in those areas aren't just popping up all of a sudden. Many of those people can trace history and feuds back thousands of years. So some of the people in the Gaza region, and the West Bank region, they were part of the Muslim Brotherhood, a group that Egypt hates. So Egypt also has a barricade on Gaza, not allowing Palestinians to leave Gaza to enter Egypt, because Egypt doesn't want them there. Now, Israel at one point in time allowed the Palestine, because the 1993 Palestinian government was allowed by Israel. Israel okayed that. They allowed them to go in, and then quickly from there they started, was that the first or second intifada, where they attempted to kill Israel. You see, Hamas and many of the Palestinian organizations have signed into their charter, into their constitution, that they will never recognize Israel as a country. Their aim and goal, written clearly, is to push Israel into the sea and exterminate all the Jews in that land. That's their aim. So as soon as Israel allowed self-governance in there, they started fighting. Now, let me balance this by adding in this side. If you are a Palestinian living in Palestine now, you and your family lived in this area for generations. Bear in mind, the Israeli claim on this is from thousands of years. Your family may have been in this region for generations. There may be Palestinian families that have been in the same spot there in that Israeli region for generations. Now, Britain come and says, well, we give this land to someone else. Britain said that, and now you have to move. That does not feel fair. That feels rightfully unfair. But the reality is that is the nature of the world as it always existed. That's the reality of the world as it always existed. That's how countries were formed all the time. The powerful people decided to pull a line and draw a line here, pull a border, and if you as a citizen lived on one side of the border or the next, you just had to follow the rules and laws that were dictated to you as they came. So, okay, the Palestinians decided, we're not taking that. We are not going to allow Israel to live there. We want back all of this land as ours. And we will not live peaceably with Israel. And they started to fight. Now, when Israel allowed free passage between Gaza and Israel, there were suicide bombings in the late 90s. Constantly. Rockets were flying over constantly. There were knife attacks constantly. So Israel decided what we're going to do is lock off the entrance between Gaza and Israel. And you must show a reason why you have to come in Israel from Gaza. What that does is it effectively turns Gaza into a prison, because now you cannot leave Gaza to go into Israel, and you cannot leave Gaza to go into Egypt, and those are the only two nations that border Gaza. And if you cannot leave Gaza to go into any of your neighbors, you are locked inside Gaza, effectively as a prison. I'm getting to that, Nicholas. I'm getting to that. Now, Israel says that any opportunity they allow for resources to get into Gaza, they use it to bring in arms and ammunition to attack more Israelis. So because of that, Israel says they have to control everything that enters the country. So they have a blockade on even the water of Gaza, the sea. Gaza, the Palestinians in Gaza are allowed to fish in a short region from the sea. They can't go too far out there. Israel has a blockade on them. Things could come in, things can go out, but Israel says what can come in and what can go out. And that's the situation as it stands. The Palestinians say they are in an open air prison and they are trying to fight their oppressors, the Israelis. The Israelis say that they came here trying to get their birthright land, the land of their ancestors, and these people, they were willing to live peaceably with these people, but these people at every juncture are attempting to kill them out. If they do not treat these people with that level of severity and fierceness, then they will die out in the region. And the thing is, I have pity to the Palestinian claim. If I lived in a region and because of political machinations, my generations of family that live there are told that they now just must move, I would not like that. It will not feel fair. I may want to fight too. I understand that. But I also understand it from Israel's point of view. And what would you have Israel do? What would you have Israel do? Is Israel supposed to just... The Jewish state proposed on multiple occasions a two-state solution. Multiple occasions they proposed a two-state solutions. And the Palestinians refused it, because they refused to accept and recognize Israel as a country. Crianel Francois says Israel has no claim to the land. That's a ridiculous statement. That statement bears no semblance to anything close to reality. No one is going to listen to you with things like that. They bear no claim to the land. So then they're there. The claim is that they're there already. That is the claim. What claim does the United States have to the land they're on? What claim does Trinidad and Tobago have to the land they're on? It's not a biblical claim, Nicholas. You see, this is the problem with many of our modern people, and this was the problem I stated at the very beginning. Many of us don't understand that the history that you read some about in the Bible is real to the people of the Middle East. The people in the Middle East don't debate whether there was an Israel there or not. The Romans have a record of the tribute they collected from the Israelites. There's archaeology to prove this. So, to say there's no claim is ridiculous. And someone, the owner of the land, like, it's not hard to understand how this came about. It's not hard to understand how this came about. Britain owned the land. Understood? Britain owned the land. You know what that's like? Imagine when we were a colony of Britain. Imagine before 1962, when we got our independence. Before that, let's say there were some Caribs that were able to gain power around the Commonwealth, and they petitioned to the Queen. They petitioned to the Queen and told the Queen, relax, Nicholas, relax and listen. Listen for a while before you type. Listen for a while before you type. If some Caribs went to the Queen and told the Queen, we want back our land, and then the Queen told them, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give the Carib nation all of Eastern Trinidad and Mayaro and Deep South. We leave the Trinidadian citizens, the mixed group of Trinidadian citizens, us, we leave them on just Port of Spain and Shagona Central region. That's what happened there. And then we, the Trinidadians that are here right now, are saying that, okay, our family has been here for generations. The Carib come back and are attempting to take their ancient claim. We don't want to recognize it. But here's the problem. The owner of the land already gave it to them. And okay, we could say we don't like that. We don't like that. Giving someone something that is theirs is an oxymoron. Well, you see, that's not how land works. That's not how land works. If the Caribs want land in Trinidad, they have to ask for it. And the Caribs may say the land is theirs. If you all are looking for Palestine, Palestine right now is basically just two small dots of areas. The southwest corner of Israel, just the corner bordering the sea and Egypt. If you go to the corner of Israel where there's the Mediterranean Sea and Egypt, that's the Gaza Strip right down in that corner there. If you go up to the kind of northeast area of Egypt, they're right next to Jordan, the Jordan River. There's West Bank right there. So those are the two areas of Palestine, the West Bank and Gaza. I think you're working off might means right, other than what ought to be right. What ought to be right, Nicholas? Who decides what ought to be right? Who is the arbiter of what ought to be right? We didn't colonize Trinidad, and the Jewish people that stayed in Israel weren't calling it Israel. Listen, I don't know how you all think countries are formed, but might is right is always how countries are formed. We were given Trinidad and Tobago by the British. We were given Trinidad and Tobago by the British, just like we're complaining about happened in Israel. Okay, Nicholas, well, say that you don't want to be a Trini, renounce it, and go. It was Israel since the Ottoman Empire, but it wasn't that big. The entire place is called Palestine. Yes, we spoke about that, where it was named after the province in the Roman Empire. Quianel Francois says the three Abrahamic religions coexisted peacefully. That is very far from the truth. That is extremely far from the truth. The Middle East has seen conflict between the three Abrahamic religions for many centuries. How do you think Islam spread across the Middle East? How do you think that happened? What do you think the Crusades were about? Like, come on. Yeah, Adventure Pro Ali, I understand. You have the Palestine flag in your bio. That's all it needs to be said. Not to the extent of when Britain got their hand on it. That's like galaxies apart from the truth. Peaceful is not in the dictionary. 1300 years to be exact. Badness. Stay on the topic. What topic are you talking about? The Crusades were about spreading Christianity. No, the Crusades were not about spreading Christianity. Islam did not spread organically. The Crusades were about revenge for Muslim countries attacking what the Christians saw then as Christian countries. If you go to Iraq and ask for the oldest building in Iraq, it's going to be a Jewish temple. If you ask for the second oldest building, it's going to be a Christian church. The Jews and the Christians were there before the Muslims were there. Like, we're going through a whole history lesson here. We're going through a whole history lesson here. The sultanates of the Muslim world were conquest oriented. They left Arabia conquering as they left, committing severe atrocities, conquering early Christian nations. Most of the Middle East was Christian before the spread of Islam. Well, not most, but a lot was Christian. Islam spread through violence also. Don't talk that organic talk. It isn't, that the lie isn't even believable. The lie isn't even believable. I mean, that's, to me, that's one of those ridiculous lies that kind of peeves me a bit. It's like it's a bigotry of low expectations. It's like we only expect that the white people could be the only ones to think to conquer people in ever. The only people that ever conquered anyone were the white people. You spreading falsehood, that's far from the truth. I deal with evidence. Okay, QNL Francois, request to come in. I wasn't planning to take that long here, but you request, we'll talk. Request and come in. You'll talk about the evidence that you have. Please request. I want to hear what you have to say. You say you speak on evidence, not emotion. So let's talk. Do you have any idea of what's going on by US in other countries? Yes, I regularly talk about the United States. Now I'm using strawmans. I don't know what strawmans you're talking about, and it will be strawmen. No, I want you to join so we could have a discussion. You said you're basing this on fact. I am not talking a one-line thing here. I have read quite a bit of the history. Let's talk. We'll call dates. We'll back it up. The entire internet and Google is open to us here. Come and let's talk and prove your point to me that you're talking about here. That somehow Islam spread organically while Christianity used conquest only. Like, what? I don't know how you manage with this level of ignorance from people. Bro, you try. But where did you go, QNL? QNL, please join so we can discuss. I agree, Nicholas. I don't disagree with that. That was my point. That exactly was my point. I went through the history, and instead of telling me where I was wrong in the history, because I don't think I was wrong, there maybe he or she don't know how to. You just click it right there. You request it right there. And the history lays it out pretty clear to me. And to me, the history, you understand why it's complex too. The Palestinians were there for a considerable period of time. They never owned the land because the land was always in between conquest and between the game of empires that every country, every main power was playing. That's what was going on there. And the land was never owned by any Palestinian in that sense. It was controlled by a different group, but they were there. So they feel like they have that lifelong claim to the land. The Israelis, the Jews hold on to that history that they have. They have that nature of repeating that history, believing this is God's promise to them. So they want back that, and they got the opportunity to get it back. And politically, they got it back. It's understandable why that would create friction. Now, the reality is, as the situation is right now, the Israelis are stronger and the Palestinians are weaker. I don't even understand the wonder in this. Genuine question: was Islam forced onto people of other religions during the Islamic conquest? It was forced onto some. It was forced onto some. But a large part of it was done through just the nature of how many of the Islamic countries ran. And I mean, to be fair, it wasn't unique to Islam only, but the Islamic countries, you could be taken as a slave if you were not a Muslim. You had to pay a tax if you were not a Muslim. So they made life much more difficult for non-Muslims living in those countries under Muslim rule. History, fact. They are Europeans and not Jewish. That's another one of the ridiculous conspiracies, that the Israelis that you see right now in Israel, they are not even the real Jews. They are the Ashkenazis that actually came from Europe, and they are actually white people. They don't even have any real bloodline to that link. But here's the problem: the majority of the Jews in Israel right now trace their lineage to around the Middle East. Much of the Jews living in Israel left Muslim neighboring countries and went to Israel. That's where they came from. You could go, the demographics are there, the books are there. Go read in 1900 how many Jews lived in Jordan, Syria, Egypt, Iraq, Iran, the Arab countries surrounding the region. Read how many Jews lived in those countries in 1900. And then read how many Jews live there now. And you'd understand where the Jews in Israel came from. They were put out of the Muslim countries. Up till today, I was reading a New York Times article from 1913, early 1900s, where they were saying Jews in trouble in Muslim countries, they are being put out and expelled from Muslim countries. The Muslim countries in the Middle East expelled them, sent them to Israel. They went in Israel. A lot of the Israelis aren't even European, by the way. They are refugees. Palestine gave them refugee status 70 years ago. Palestine doesn't have the ability to give anyone any status. How can Palestine give someone refugee status 70 years ago when Palestine didn't exist as a political entity until 1993? But Seth's Boutique, I literally just went through explaining to you, even if you want to make the argument that that European Jews aren't real Jews, the Jews in Israel are not all European Jews. The majority of them came from the surrounding Middle East. There are Ethiopian Jews in Israel right now. Did you know that? It might seem as a shocker to you. Ethiopian Jews in Israel. I know what the Balfour Declaration is. We already passed that. All religions were taught through slavery, violence, and murder, to be honest, and genocide. Look into the declaration that I know what the Balfour Declaration is. I know what it is. I understand that. The people existed before the political entity. Yes, they existed before the political entity, but they had no political power. You couldn't tell someone that we give you refugee status if you are not the political controller of this region. Palestine came into being in the 12th. What? That's some nonsense. Palestine as a name came into being when the Romans named the region Palestine because they controlled it as Palestine being their province. Palestine is a Roman word, not even an Arabian word. Palestine came into being by the Romans. So if you're talking about the origin of the word Palestine, that's when it came into being. If you're talking about the origin of the political entity of Palestine, that only came into being in 93. Someone made a decision without the peoples who lived their consent. Nicholas, but that's what I'm saying is what happens all through the world. That's the nature of the world we exist in. Did Tobago consent to becoming part of the Trinidad and Tobago Union? They came from Poland. We already discussed that, man. Let me don't go back where we crossed already. 20th dynasty of Egypt, which used the name Peleset or the neighboring people or land. You see, the problem with what you're talking about there, Shucks Nine, is if you go to the Palestinians, they wouldn't even argue what you're arguing. The Palestinians know that they are Arabian. The Palestinians call themselves Arabian. I'm talking about what ought, not what is. Well, the reality is, Nicholas, we could only live in what is. What ought isn't the world we live in. What ought isn't the world we live in. We don't live in the what ought world. We live in the what is world. No country exists by what ought. Shucks, man, I feel like I could mute you by now, because you're just saying random things. You're not even part of the discussion. When someone says something to negate your point, you just pass on and say another sentence and say it's nearly like you're a butt. You're talking like you're a butt. Are you a butt inside the? Join now. Join. Let we talk. To make sure you're not a butt. Join. Let we talk. Let's see if the words you say could work on that, and we'll go through seeing which one is white man's history, seeing if we could get you're saying don't read white man's history, so we'll see if we could get some non-white sources for the things that we're going to talk about. So request to join and let's talk about it. So you agree then this ought not or should not be happening to the Palestinians? I don't know in terms of ought, because in terms of ought, that's nearly an impossible thing to talk about. That's nearly an impossible thing to talk about. The Palestinians are Arabs. The Arabs ought to have stayed in Arabia. The natives of the land, that Palestinian land, well, if you go back long enough, they would have been Israelites. But if you go back further, they may have been Canaanites. So is it that the Canaanites are the ones we ought to find? See if we find someone with the best strain of Canaanite DNA, because all of the other Canaanite kingdoms are gone. See if we find someone with the right Canaanite DNA, and they are the ones who ought to be there. Like, what's the ought? You got to request to join. I'm not seeing the requests. So then how do you get who ought to be there? How does that work? Because the Palestinians came in there because Islamic countries conquered the land. Are we to say now the Islamic countries, the Islamic sultanates that conquered the land thousands of years ago ought not to have done that? The Islamic nations ought not to have conquered the land. And if they didn't conquer the land, well then the Palestinian Arabs would not have been there. it was barbaric, then it's still barbaric now. What is and was barbaric? We choose now the future which we want to see. Okay, so in that future, what do you see happening? What do we do with the Israelites now? The Israelis now. What do we do with them? You're saying that the land is Palestine's land now. What do we do with the Israelis who have already been there for 70 plus years? What do we do with them? That's a great question. That's a question that needs answering, because the answer that the Palestinians have, not all Palestinians, but the Palestinians in the military side have, is push them into the sea. Divide the land equally. All right, divide the land equally. Now, as it stands, there are less Palestinians numerically now than there are Israelis in the region. So, is it that you're going to draw a line half and half and give Palestinians who may have less numbers half of the land and give the Israelis the next half? And then bear in mind also, land isn't all homogeneous. So there are areas in Palestine that are basically desert, and there are areas that are very fertile. According to how you cut the land, you could give someone the desert half and end up giving someone the fertile half. Do you think it's feasible to split up Israel half and half so perfectly that the Palestinians that right now think all Israelis should die are going to become okay with the Israelis? And just so you know, on the two-state solution, the Palestinians have, as part of them, well, at least Hamas, no negotiation with Israel, no recognition of Israel. So they will not accept that two-state solution. I only have 2 requests, Ronnie. I have you in a room, and I'm going just now. That's why I didn't allow you all up. I just wanted one of the experts that were telling me I'm wrong. I wanted at least one person to join the discussion to say so. But apparently, that's kind of why I'm still here. I was waiting to see if one person was coming, and apparently no one tried. When divided, they can trade. Listen. Just so you know, there are many Palestinians right now living comfortably in Israel. There are Palestinians in the Israeli parliament. Let's look at this. There are Palestinians, Arabs, in Israel comfortably. But there are no Israelis in Palestine. Why do you think that is? But you haven't talked yet about Zionist virulent hatred towards Palestinians, because there's hatred all around. There's Zionist hatred towards Palestinians. There's Zionist hatred towards Muslims. There's Zionist hatred towards Christians. There's Muslim hatred towards Zionists. Muslim hatred towards Christians. Muslim hatred towards Jews. There's that hatred all around. The hatred isn't the main thing here. What caused hatred? Eve eating the fruit caused hatred, Gregory. Eve eating the fruit. I've only talked about one side. How have I only talked about one side? Land carving didn't cause the hatred. Land carving did not cause the hatred. Sheesh. There has been war, violence hatred in the Middle East for a very long time. A very long time. The hatred didn't pop up in 1947. It didn't pop up in 1947. It's like I have a view where you kind of think like no war actually starts or ends. Like when if you read history, World War II didn't start with World War II. World War II started with World War One. And World War One didn't just start with World War One. World War One started with friction in Eastern Europe that was a continuation from since the Russian Revolution. Well, not since the Russian Revolution, but from since Russian friction. So it's a continual trail. It's frustrating in this place. I'm so sorry for you. But yeah, bad mind. The hate is solely because of religion. No, the hate is not solely because of religion. Humans hate each other. We find convenient ways to hate each other. We use religion. We use race, we use country, we use skin color. When we all look the same, we use heritage, we use name, we use height. The hatred isn't religion. The hatred is a human thing. Religion started the war in the Middle East. No, religion did not start the war in the Middle East. The Assyrians were passing through the Middle East, wiping out people from a side since the Iron Age. That's since 2000 BC. 4,000 years ago, the Assyrians, the children of Asher, were out there with their iron weapons, wiping out people in the Middle East. They didn't need any new modern religion to do it. Moloch was good enough. Hamas retaliated from Israel building and land grabbing. Retaliated and raped and murdered innocent women and children. That's how you retaliate for people building? Nah, I'm not a Zionist. And you can't really be a Zionist Christian because the Zionists don't approve of Christianity. The Zionists pretty much hate Christianity. Christians are persecuted by and large in a Zionist Israel. Like, I don't understand. Sandstorm, you notice I've been requesting this. These people are so sure about what they're saying. And I'm saying, please join so we can have a discussion where we can speak. And no one wants to join. Why don't you want to join? Why don't any of you want to join? You hit the two small, you see like two men down there. You tap that. Tap that and join. Nice. Wonderful. Someone tapped it. Otis. You there, bro?
Yeah, good night, you guys.
Good night. What's happening?
Good, enjoying your live as usual. Personally, I don't care about, the whole Israel-Palestine situation. I think the real issue in this year is Hamas. It's not really the Palestinian people, but that particular militia group in particular. It's not now that we could go back to the late 90s with Yasser Arafat, when he was the president of Palestine, and Ariel Sharon, and there was I can't remember the name of the guy, the leader of Hamas, the guy who was in the blame that was executed. I can't remember his name, but they assassinated him and they bombed the vehicle that he was traveling, and that's how they killed him. But as well now, I think the real issue is Hamas. And Hamas hides behind civilians. This is why when a lot of when the Israelites retaliate in response to Hamas attacks, and a lot of Palestinians, civilians are injured or killed. We see that the Hamas militia actually hides behind civilians.
Yes, they do.
They attack from schools, they attack from hospitals, they are attacked from residential communities. So when they, it's really messed up. So I even though I am kind of sympathetic with the Israelites, because it has no way you can really fight these individuals without a civilian casualties, seeing that they always hide behind the civilians. But I also understand the Palestinian cause. When we look at the Gaza Strip, the Gaza area literally smaller than Trinidad. It is basically like 70 miles long, 5 miles wide, a population of
2.2 million.
Over 2 million. That is not sufficient space for enough welfare population. That is very, very small. So I can understand the Palestinian people wanted more space. I can also understand why Hamas would react that way. It's a messy situation, and as the old saying goes, nobody wins a war. Anyhow you take it, the innocent will suffer. There will be casualties of the innocent on both sides, and the political leaders, if people really want peace, whether it be the United Nations, the political leaders in the Middle East or whatever, they need to do what they can if it's to offer a refugee status to the Palestinians, because at the end of the day, somebody has to compromise somewhere, whether it be Saudi Arabia or one of these other.
It would not be Saudi Arabia, because you see, you're going into the Sunni versus Shiite problem that there also is in the Middle East, and that problem also has war and conflict brewing. Now, when you're talking about Hamas there, to balance things for Nicholas, because he finds that I'm only talking about one side, because I don't have the view, this kind of modernist view that we have, that we have to be fair. We have to be fair. The small man has to be the good guy. No, the small man could be evil too. The small man could not have a good case. The reality could be this is just how the world exists also. But the reality is also that the Hamas you speak about, was to a large extent created by Israel. Hamas was to a large extent created by Israel, and well, of course, the CIA must have their hands in there. It wouldn't be a good terrorist organization, Genesis, if CIA wasn't inside there. In the 80s, the Israelis and the CIA funded a lot of Hamas activity and Hamas mosques inside of Palestine, because they thought Hamas would be a countermeasure to Yasser Arafat and his Palestinian Liberation Army or Palestinian Liberation Organization or whatever they call themselves. And they thought that, they would have that infighting in there, and well, we would be safe in Israel. And as all of those things go, you can't control those things, just as it was with Al-Qaeda and ISIS and all the other created terrorist organizations. Hamas became out of control. They no longer could control them. And the point you're making there about Hamas hiding in civilian buildings and in hospitals and schools, etc., that's why I regularly ask people, so good night Abu Saif, I regularly ask people, what do you, okay, so you think Israel shouldn't do as they're doing now. Okay, what do you want them to do in exchange for that? That instead of what they're doing now, should they just allow Hamas to murder them? How should they attack Hamas? How do they attack Hamas? Because I will let you know, as it stands, I was looking at some of the action right as it's going on right now. The way how is Israel as it stands right now does their bombing. They pamphlet, they drop a non-incendiary bomb, which is just a knocker. It literally just makes a loud noise. They're warning the civilians to leave. They already told civilians to get out. So in that case, let me finish my point, and I'd like Nicholas to go on. So in that case, if the terrorist organization that wants all of us dead is willing to use civilians as shields, what is the solution then? Yeah, Nicholas.
I think the best solution would be a foot invasion. Nothing would be wrong with Israel sending what I be 30,000-40,000 soldiers into a small area like the Gaza Strip and taking out the Hamas members, whether one by one, fight them on the ground.
Does Hamas wear a uniform?
What's that?
Does Hamas wear a uniform?
No, they don't wear a uniform. But
So when these 30,000 Israeli soldiers go into Gaza, understanding that the average Gazan citizen is already hostile towards the Israeli Defense Force, don't you think it stands an extremely high risk of lots of casualties on their soldiers doing that?
But the difference is they know who the head of the organization is. If you cut off the head, the body will fall. So they already know who the head of the organization is. Target the head. Go after the head of
That's not how terrorist organizations don't work like that. They're hydras. You cut off the head and further heads grow back. Let me hear Shocks 9.
Hey, good night. Thanks for element to the chat.
Yeah, man.
Let me just say this is a very good chat because a lot of people in Trinidad and these far outreach countries are ignorant of the information which is being in the media right now regarding Palestine and Israel. One thing I mentioned about how Hamas was formed, right? Hamas is a political organization. It's like PAINED, UNC, all these things. But Hamas started with Yasser
Arafat.
He started Hamas with 6 other Palestinians from Hamas because of a shooting of an accident which took place in Palestine, were involving 4 Palestinian persons. Now, maybe the CIA was involved. I don't have. If you have information, brother, you're better than me. But I don't have that information.
I'm not asking about that. That's widely known because Hamas had mosques and their mosques were sponsored. Their mosques were sponsored by Israel and the CIA. But go ahead.
Well, right. So, you mentioned about the Palestinians who is the Gaza and West Bank. Now, war have a lot of geographic advantages of it. The biggest thing in this war is the geography of the war. The Gaza Strip is on one end, West Bank is on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no, the way the media portrays it, it's like a coalition between Hezbollah and Hamas fighting together against the Israelites. That is far from the truth. There's one tiny group fighting Israel on one side, and the other side, a tiny group fighting Israel on the other side. We talking these people probably have rocket launchers from the 1960s, and Israel have 2023 anti-rocket missiles and whatever you call it, they have it. Israel is the biggest and the best defense system in the world. They watch it again. It's like them long time slingshot with a rock.
I know it. I know the Iron Dome. But to me, here's the problem with that argument for me. It's like a little child that is trying to stab me. Or let me just say a little child, because a little child says like he doesn't understand what he's doing. A midget, I know it's not the politically correct term, I don't care.
Right.
A midget trying to stab me, and I'm bigger and stronger than him, so I could jump out the way and people are laughing at it. Yeah, watch. And when I slap him down, they're like, "You advantage us, boy." No, the midget is trying to stab me.
So people don't understand how this thing is. Senior Israeli politicians are making requests to Netanyahu, who's the prime minister, to annihilate Gaza and annihilate Hamas, right?
Yes, turn it into glass, as they
This
say.
is on media. This is on CNN. This is on CNN. This is on Al Jazeera. And that will never happen. You know that will never happen.
Why?
If you ever went to the beach, and you have your kids build a sandcastle, every wave that comes takes away a piece, and they will not miss it. If a tsunami come and take out the whole thing, they're gone. So what Israel have been doing since now this is a long issue with the Britons and in 1978, and they came all them history, we don't go through all that. All that was written, they said they will leave in 60 years, and they're still there up now. It's like your neighbor told me, I walk around travel by. Next thing you know, he in a bedroom with your wife. And you outside sweeping the yard. That's what the system is. People have to understand they have to follow this thing. There isn't a resolve. This war will never end. Israelis will keep, we can't say that, but the Zionists, the Jews, they will keep on killing the Palestinians. They will provoke them. Then they will attack.
So it's the Zionists that provoke the Palestinians, and that causes the Palestinians to attack.
Well, I have a real grounds I using it with Palestinian because there's no Palestine.
Correct.
So we can say a few Muslims living in Gaza and a few Muslims living in West Bank. The only thing saving West Bank now is Lebanon. People don't understand this now. Lebanon is saving West Bank right now. That's the only thing saving. If Lebanon draw back their troops, West Bank will keep eating away and you'll get more like Gaza. Gaza is like Tobago, you know.
Yeah. And here's the thing, this is the point I was making earlier on. I can understand from both point of views very, very well. I could understand why, if I was a Palestinian, why I would want to fight the Israelis. I could understand, though, if I was an Israeli, why I would fight for this land that I believe is my birthright. And we got somehow the political movements worked in our favor. Britain gave us it, and then through wars and conquests, we conquered more. I would want to fight for it too. I understand that. But for me, the problem is when people attempt to try to make it seem like the Palestinians are the morally upstanding right ones in this, and the Israelis are no. This is a land conflict.
People have to look close to home, right? Right in Suriname, there's a synagogue next to a masjid. Where the synagogue is the Jews and the masjid is the Muslims, right? And the only reason there is peace here that there's no right birthright to land. There's no birthright to land. And you're right in what you're saying. The Jews claiming the birthright to land. And lastly, before I go, because before I'll do something right now, the only reason this is allowed, whether it is a Christian God, whether it's a Jewish God, whether it's a Muslim God, God is allowing these things to happen. So it is written, so it shall be done. You understand? And I believe that the Muslims suffering here for a reason, and soon that suffering shall end.
I've heard that said. Israel is the police for the US in the Middle East. That is true.
When that end, the kind of the so-called raping and all these things, they'll come to light.
So you're one of those that believe that it's all propaganda about the atrocities that Hamas did and do in Israel?
Well, let me give you a fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was an English reporter held by the Taliban for 11 days.
Mm-hmm.
11 days.
Mm-hmm.
For the first 4 days, she revolted against the Taliban, spitting, cursing, abusing them.
Mm-hmm.
On the 5th day, she said, let me ask them why she's still alive. Then you hear the question, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Because she's a spy. So when you're a spy, to spy on the Taliban government.
Mm-hmm.
How long that war was? Taliban was painted as the Taliban is painted as the most atrocious, the most corrupt, but the worst governing body in the world is Taliban.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody say Taliban. Every day about Taliban is murder, rape, all this pedophiles. You can name it, that's how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And today, that English journalist is a Muslim. She converted to Islam only because of those 11 days and the 12 days she left on that captivity.
Stockholm syndrome?
Not Stockholm syndrome. Let me ask you something to you.
I'm kind of joking on that, but you're not answering my question, eh? You're not answering my question.
No.
You believe it's all propaganda about the atrocities that Hamas committed?
The reason why I draw the example is that is the evidence, you see. Let someone come out and speak out. Let a person come and speak out. Speak out.
But there are people speaking out right now.
Yes, if you have Muslim friends or colleagues, also that want to shy away and don't stand up and say I do this and I do that. The data Islam don't promote cowardice. They don't promote lying and say I didn't do that, I didn't do this. They don't promote that. It said if you do it, you do it. If Muslims are raping and killing, like how Hamas said, we will bomb you if you keep on breaking our buildings and taking our land. They warned them, they said that, they say Hamas told them that. They say if you all keep on doing this, Israelis, we're gonna deal with all that. They warned the southern tongue close to the border. They said, all the taking we land, we're gonna retaliate. And they did.
Well, the retaliation, according to them, wasn't for taking of land. It was a Al-Aqsa retaliation, just by the way. So that's wrong. But I still am waiting on the answer. So you're saying because Islam doesn't promote that, it means that Hamas wouldn't commit it? So are the witnesses and the video... By the way, the videos of some of the atrocities came from Hamas Telegram groups where they posted it because they were proud of what they did, just as you said. They weren't shying away.
No, they weren't shying away. Listen, anybody, whether it's me, you, or anybody, if you are being oppressed, stand your ground, you know.
I see. So you're saying wait. So you're saying the right response to oppression there is murder, rape of children and women who have nothing to do with the government's decision. And then wait, let me finish my point. You do understand then that is the same argument that Israel would use when they turn Gaza into glass. They're saying you can't call the civilians innocent. They are part of this group that is attacking us. And Hamas is attempting to use the same reasoning. Are you saying that reasoning is correct?
Let me answer this for them.
All right, Nicholas.
Let me answer this for them. Jeez. Okay, Hamas is extremist. And I didn't know exactly how the form. You just informed me that how they was given certain powers by certain people, and that seemed to follow the trend of a lot of extremist groups giving powers to get rid of another enemy. But then, it's an extremist group that is mixing to the Palestinian people and the Palestinian people and them going through oppression. I think it's obvious. The reaction is obvious. I don't think it's a lie that the murder in innocence. I don't think most of the thing. I don't think it's a lie, but I think it's as expected. I wouldn't be like, oh my god, what? Murdering? I was like, yeah, murdering. It's an extremist group that fighting back. Yeah, and I heard that they're keeping but just a little balance these kills more. I heard that they're kidnapping and keeping prisoners so they can exchange back people. Not sure about that. I heard that but I ain't expecting too much thing from just an extremist group within the Palestinian people. I don't expect that much.
Prisoners of war are part of war, yeah? Prisoners of war are part of war.
Yeah. I hear they keeping prisoners, kidnapping thing. I expect murder of innocence. The thing was right there. I hear conspiracy theories about how they passed the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome supposed to be impenetrable, and how that parachute was taken so long to come down and they don't shoot them. And the Kelton was right there in that thing. So they're gonna have an excuse. Is your plan an excuse for that? But that's a conspiracy theory. That's conspiracy theory.
Just now, Otis.
The Israelis allowed that to happen so that they would have a reason to invade Palestine and invade Gaza on the ground so that they would be able to send in foot soldiers.
Okay. Yeah, Nicholas.
Most like it's expected. Just like some of it is unfortunate. Like in a sense, it's like, but yeah, in a sense, gonna happen. I'm not gonna be like, yeah, gonna happen. I'm sorry.
Let me ask this question. Let me ask this question. Yeah, it's really reference on what you budget fighting here, right? So
what's that?
Budgets here. It's really reference on what you budget would have fighting.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
All right. So this is how your logic. The answer is any question, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are 6 foot 4 big man, right?
So I have to kill him.
So, that is the point exactly. This is the point, boy. This is all being arranged. Ever so often, they always have wars, and they will just reclaim more land. That is why Netanyahu would not wipe them out until they sit in the glass. Eventually, Gaza will be a poster on a wall in the airport, in the new Israeli Gaza airport. Here was the Motel Gaza. Eventually, this is what it will be. This is that budget is the Muslims, right? Is the Muslims in East West Bank and Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody that's stupid. You will fight this. You know you're gonna die. You will not engage provocation. You won't provoke. The budget won't provoke you to hit you. If they have a peace for 10 years. Every year.
You think so? You think that there aren't people who will attack you even if they think that they are going to lose? Weren't you the one that said Islam doesn't promote cowardice?
So that would be preferable than just living within the problem. And sorry to interrupt, but what I wanted to is so a comedian make a joke once, so it's like, who give them, if nobody gave the Israel the thing, a lot of them wouldn't have the guns or the bombs or the missiles or the thing. Why? All of them should be midgets. It shouldn't have no 6 person there.
Let me ask a question. What if the same way Britain brought the Jews and say, okay, let them live here?
Mm-hmm.
Why that same procedure and process do reenact now? But let's say, okay, Jews give the Arabs a place to live now.
It did, and this is why I was trying to go through the history just now. This is why I was trying to go through the history. It's something like on 4 occasions, 2-state solutions were proposed that Israel agreed to, and the Palestinian organizations that control Palestine, which are in most cases literal terrorist organizations, refused the two-state solutions. And that's why I keep asking people who are on the Palestinian side, what do you propose we do with the Israelites? I know what the Palestinian terrorists and extremists propose, but I don't think you're going to propose we push all the Jews into the sea. So what is a workable solution that the Palestinian extremists will accept?
Can I join?
Yeah, there's Abu Saif.
Yes,
Good night.
What non-extremist Palestinians are singing for and what non-Zionist Jewish people are asking for. Have you looked up on what they ask? Because I'm not the expert here. I'm just a Trinidadian who trying to...
The reality is, Nicola, and this is why I yesterday when I spoke about this, the first thing I said is a government is not a country. And the country is not all the people of the country. So, Hamas is not Palestine. Palestine is not every Palestinian. The Communist Party of China is not the same thing as China. China is not the same thing as every Chinese person. All right. That being said, there are many individuals in Palestine and in Israel who want peace. Many of them do. There are some Palestinians who work in Israel. Some moved to Israel. The Nas Daily, the guy who became famous on Facebook. I don't know if you all know those videos, the 1 minute videos. Nas Daily, NAS Daily. He considers himself a Palestinian Israeli because he's Palestinian, but he lives in Israel. That is a very common thing. He doesn't want that war. He made a post on X, formerly Twitter, where he said now he's changing from calling himself a Palestinian Israeli to calling himself an Israeli Palestinian, because the point he was making is that even as a Palestinian, he does not want to live in Gaza or West Bank. He prefers to live in Israel under Israeli authority. By the way, Gaza, West Bank, Palestine aren't lovely free democracies. So,
Mr. Springer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, just now, Nico. Yeah, Abu.
Right. So what I was saying with, I'm a Trinidadian, right?
Yes.
I have Arab blood in me. I was actually born in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been a supporter of Palestine for the past probably 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
So when Israel proposed these two-state solutions, right? One of the things that happened when the state of Israel was imposed upon the Palestinian people was that 750,000 people were forcibly removed from their homes.
Correct.
And with these deals that Israel want to come with, they are not allowing the right of return for Palestinian refugees, which is international law, that you must allow the right of return. So they're breaking United Nations resolutions, Geneva Fourth Conventions. Where do they expect the people who were forcibly removed from their homes to go to live in refugee camps for the rest of eternity? So this is why the Palestinians never accepted the deals. The people want their land.
Well said. People are reading this two-state deal and they're just saying it sounds like a good idea from outside. You have to read these things, boy. You have to listen to these things. They have broken every single agreement, every single thing of truth. They break it. And
who's they that break it? Hamas?
The Israelis.
And Hamas didn't break it? Hezbollah didn't break it? The PLA didn't break it?
The PLO.
PLO.
The reason why they couldn't accept it is also because of the population. Remember, government relies on popular support.
Correct.
And Yasser Arafat, who was a true hero, he could not make that deal because he would have faced execution from his own people for taking a deal where people were not being allowed to return to their
I understand what you're saying there, Abu. But hear this. Go ahead.
Sorry, one second.
Finish.
The Israelis made it they made it impossible for the Palestinian leadership to accept the deal. So for the world,
that sort to survive, boy. You gotta read it.
They made it sound like, yes, we offer this deal and the Palestinians don't want it. But what it wasn't behind closed doors is that the deal was impossible for the Palestinians to accept. Remember, these people were chased from their homes. It's not like these are European settlers who have no connection
connection to the Holy Land.
That's not true. That one isn't true, Abu.
I'm not talking about 8,000 years ago, right? Or 4,000 years ago.
No, I'm not talking about then either. I'm not talking about then. I'm talking about currently. You can do a demographic view of the Israeli population and you'd recognize that much of the Jews actually came from the surrounding Muslim countries. They were expelled or persecuted there, at least that's what they say, and they returned to Israel. There's a significant portion of Ethiopian Jews living in Israel right now. It's not just European Jews. That is not true. Then wait. Let me just now. I wanna go through the stuff that he said. I wanna go through some of this.
People listen to you, they will understand what he's saying, but I know the truth. It have American Jews with Texas accents and Boston accents.
You're not. Wait. You're not negate. Wait. You said what I said isn't true. Are there not a large and significant number of Jews from Syria, Iraq, Iran, and the surrounding Muslim countries? A significant portion of Ethiopian Jews that live in Israel? Are there not? Is that a lie?
Yeah, talking past each other where one person talking about somebody who has a bloodline going back to Israel and one person talking about somebody who currently lives in America and I want to go back because of the bloodline. I think they're talking past each other.
No. I am saying the view that all of the Jews in Israel, or the vast majority of Jews in Israel, are just Ashkenazi Jews that came from Poland after World War II and settled there and kicked out the Palestinians. That's incorrect. There were already upwards of 20,000 Jews at least in the land in 1900, and they started moving back since then, and there were Jews from the surrounding Muslim nations. I urge you, and I said this earlier, you can go, and if you don't want the white man's history, as someone said previously, you can go look at the number of Jews in the Muslim surrounding countries in 1900, and then go now and look at the number of Jews in the Muslim surrounding countries now, and ask yourself, where do you think they went? Now, to just go back to a point you were saying there, Abu Saif, about them being chased from their land and the two-state solution being such an insult. I agree. I don't disagree that it may be an insult. What I have been saying is that's just the reality of the world that we live in. The natives were insulted the same way. When the US conquered the land, they put the natives on reservations and told them, that's your little nation. You could have the Cherokee nation in that little spot. That was their solution, and they gave them it. Now, you could say it's not fair, and it isn't. But would it have been better for the Cherokee nation to pick up arms, do a couple massacres on innocent Americans, and then be wiped off the face of the earth? Would that have been a better option?
That wouldn't be wrong.
But would it have been a better option?
Remember, what to be able to
we have resistance groups of people of black percent who currently want to does not like the current state of living under. Anyways, I would say it also would be wrong for let me say America to push and just relocate people from West Africa who live in a town to put me back there in the house that they build and they live in. That would also be wrong. I wouldn't want that thing. I might want to live somewhere wrong if they would live it, but I wouldn't think it right for another America or the ruling power.
By the way, Nicholas, America already did that. America did that in Liberia. They took some former slaves, put them in Liberia, and they put them there to control certain areas. Those freed slaves, just by the way, that's a nice piece of history for you to go and look at, went and became slavers. This is a common thing in human history. I am not saying it's good, but I'm saying it's a normal part. Yeah, Abu.
That's a lot of current. Why it is? You just use America as a reference, right? If America wants peace, they don't want peace. If they want peace, right, they still don't want peace, right? Why they arming one side to get peace?
Well, for one, I could explain. As you said, I don't necessarily believe that America's aim is peace. America's aim is influence. I don't believe their aim is peace. But I believe they're arming one side while funding and giving aid to the other sides also. I believe they're doing that because the reason they say ostensibly, or the reason that they put out there, is that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. So it's the last torch of freedom and democracy in the Middle East. I am talking about the talking point narrative reason they see. The reason I think that it actually is that they want to remain with the influence the way it is in the Middle East. They want to remain having the influence that they do have.
So democracy here means a Palestinian and an Israeli are equal, which means that the Palestinian is subservient to the Israeli. What I mean?
We already know that America represents an American is pushing the agenda. That's not what he's saying. He's just saying what they're saying.
Right. And democracy, as in saying that Israel is the only democracy, is saying that Palestine is not a democracy, as well as all of the other countries in the Middle East are not free democracies. Israel being the only free democracy.
Was a U.S. soldier, you know?
Huh?
Netanyahu was in the U.S. Army, you know?
Nathan, I want to mention something.
Yeah, man.
Remember, there were free and democratic elections in Gaza. And Hamas won democratically.
I remember that.
They became the government of Palestine.
I remember that.
And immediately, Israel did not accept the vote, and America immediately designated Hamas as a terrorist organization. So
No, Abu, answer me this. Like, honestly. If you were an Israeli, I know it could probably be difficult with the history of your life as is, but try to put yourself in the shoes of an Israeli. And Hamas is elected as the governing body of the neighboring country. Hamas, who has in their charter that Israel should not exist. What would you have done?
All right. So we're dealing with the symptoms and we're not dealing really with the root cause of this whole turmoil, right? And the root cause of this turmoil is an illegal occupation. It is illegal. It has been called apartheid by all human rights organizations because that was it. It's not a democracy. It's an apartheid state that has different rules for different people. Even the Palestinians who are considered Israelis in the West Bank and Jerusalem, they are not treated equally as the Israelis. Right?
That's not totally true. That's not. If they live in West Bank,
yeah, that's your ID card to go through.
Right. But if you are an Israeli, you are treated equally. There are Palestinians on the Israeli Supreme Court.
The Israeli Supreme Court has been taken over by the Likud, by the right-wing government, and they are actually changing all of the laws that has some bit of democracy in it, and
they're going right wing. I know that. I know that Netanyahu is a right wing.
Really, it's not an apartheid state. That's what he said. That just because that's what he said. It is an apartheid state. Just because there are some Palestinians getting some nice treatment doesn't mean
no. It's not about nice treatment. Apartheid means that it is forbidden for certain people to access certain things. And what I'm saying is Palestinians aren't forbidden from accessing things based on their race or ethnicity or genetics. They may be forbidden based on where they live.
No. The mere fact that you have to be identified as a Palestinian with that special color thing wrong in the badge. We look the same. All Arabs look the same. They're born in the same place. All Arabs. What makes because you wear hijab, because you have a jalab, or because you have you're Muslim, you don't wear this thing wrong your neck, you have a different badge?
No, but look at it. Let me mention something. The fact that if you need to understand understand the Jewish people and their ideology and their religion, right? They believe that they are the Jews and everyone else on the face of God earth are Gentiles.
Yes.
And they are superior beings.
Yes.
So their intrinsic philosophy is not based on equality.
No, it's not.
And that will be reflected in their politics as well.
Correct.
So therefore that can never be a democracy, right? Never be a democracy.
You could have a democracy among supremacists. You could have a democracy. Democracy isn't just by the way. Democracy isn't a good word, you know. Democracy isn't like saying this is automatically a good thing, you know. You could have a monarchy that is run much better than a democracy. Democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting about what's for dinner. That's the saying as it goes. So democracy isn't necessarily an automatically good thing. That's that. But I agree with you, Abu Saif. I agree. That is their belief. And
one thing I want to mention. The root cause of this is the occupation, right?
Yes.
How could you be having a two-state solution on the table, but while you're negotiating this two-state solution, you're annexing land,
yes,
you're allowing settlers, you're allowing settlements to expand, you're allowing settlers to do what they want with the Palestinians. And I want to explain something to you. If a settler assaults a Palestinian in the occupied territory, the soldiers, the Israeli soldiers themselves, say that they are not allowed to intervene. But if the Palestinian retaliates, the soldier will intervene. And that's not if you look at breaking the silence, where there are a group of Israeli soldiers who left the military and they found an organization called Breaking the Silence. And if you listen to what those Israeli soldiers...
Yes, I did. I saw some of those videos where some of the Israeli soldiers spoke about some of the atrocities that they committed. I saw that.
I have never seen a Palestinian take a Jewish land, but I've always seen a Jewish...
Well, they cannot. In order to take the land, you need to have systemic power, and the Palestinians don't have systemic power. You know, we have to close here. I had to go. Going real good, fellas. I understand. I agree. Going real good, but we have to close. And as we close, something that I've been thinking about looking at this conflict in particular. I think one of the main problems we are having with this conflict is we are looking at a Bronze Age, Iron Age style conflict, and we are looking at it with modern lens. So when people complain about what Hamas did, if you look at what Hamas did with the lens of someone living in the Bronze Age, not with the modernist lens of rules of war and war crimes and such ridiculous concepts, you understand very well why they did what they did. They kidnapped young, beautiful women. That was always what you did when you were warring your neighbor. It was where you would get maximum purchase for kidnapping some people. You watch what Israel is doing. Israel is doing what Bronze Age kingdoms did. To the winner goes the spoils. To the victor goes the spoils. That was the saying that Rome developed. To the winner goes the spoils. So they're working on a Bronze Age kind of thinking that we have more power, we are conquering this land is going to be ours. And with both sides having a similar mentality like that, and then us in the other side of the world looking in and trying to judge it with the kind of modern sensibilities, that's why we always end up in these problems.
If for some reason,
thinking of Bronze Age,
don't leave us. I'll leave this one. I'll laugh. If for some reason, but then accept Islam, it all over, you
know. Yeah, man, Abu. Yeah, Nico, I'm listening to what you're saying there.
One of these people has systemic power and one of these people does not. And I think that gets very close to the heart of the argument. Also, I don't like how you frame it as these people are just Bronze Age and these are Bronze Age conflicts. That is necessarily right. I think it's a like I said earlier, it's an obvious reaction. When you create on something and what happened, and they do the same thing and they
wait, I don't agree with that, Nicholas. I don't agree with that. Kidnapping children, murdering grandmothers, allegedly beheading babies, that's not an obvious reaction. That is
unfounded. Those are allegations.
That's why I said Abu. That's why I said allegedly. The kidnapping isn't an allegation. The murder isn't an allegation. The beheading of the baby's part is an allegation. And to put it fairly, even the Israeli Defense Force says they don't have any confirmation of that. It was just a news program that pushed that out there. But either way, those things aren't just about an understandable reaction. Trinidadians will not react like that. Even if something like that was perpetrated against us, someone stole your house, the average Trinidadian isn't going to react like that. The reason that reaction happens there is because there is that Bronze Age culture. You look at what happened with ISIS. ISIS was attempting to do a Bronze Age move. They were attempting to create, basically, I know it's a sultanate, but an empire in the middle of the Middle East in 2000 and something. That's a Bronze Age move. That's why if you try to think about it with modern sensibilities, a lot of it doesn't make sense. But if you look back on it with the Bronze Age thinking, it makes sense. Now, saying it's a Bronze Age culture or Bronze Age move isn't meant as an insult. It's just meant as the reality. To me, some Bronze Age reactions made more sense. Some Bronze Age reactions probably were more justifiable than our modern sensibilities. I'm not insulting them based on that. I'm just saying it is what it is. It is more Bronze Age style thinking. It's like I was listening to some commentators speak about Russia and why so many in the US and even in Europe seem to not understand totally the Russian conflict. It's because Russia isn't the same culture as the Western Europe and the Americans. They have an older, different culture. They see things, they see their worldview isn't your same worldview. They don't look at things with this Western individualist Enlightenment era view of everything. They are different worldviews. And they, as Abu Saif said, even of the Jews, the Zionists, their worldview isn't everybody created equal, we exist under laws, all under the law. No. We are the special sweet apple of the eye of God, the creator of this universe. We are more special than everyone else. That's not a general modern day view. That is the point I'm making. People need to learn to take facts as they are, not be triggered by emotion in this conversation. This war will always be. I don't know necessarily about this war, but I'm sure that war on a whole will always be. People, this was nice. My alarm clock ringing there.
All right, Nathan. Good night. Good night, everybody.
It was good. Thank you for joining, Abu. Thank you for joining.
Most welcome.
Yeah, Nicholas. Thank you. Latest people, I hope you're educated, informed, and entertained. This was the Mindful Live. We went a while. It was interesting, but we went a while. Latest people, I will see you guys again for the next Mindful Live show, which may not be tomorrow. I don't think there will be a Mindful Live show tomorrow. We will be here Thursday. Be mindful, not mindless, as Trini Hotep always says. And I will see you guys again Thursday. Thursday is all talk. You see what the ending was here? This is all it is Thursday. You come and you discuss. Sai 50'd. I saw you on the inside. I hope you're still there. Later, Sai 50'd. I saw you starring in a, what was it? Sasha Cosmetics makeup and thing. You're big out there these days. Hold it down. Stay well, people. Laters. Peace. I'm out.